What do you want from me? I'm just blood and flesh and bones. I'm not an answer.
Welcome to Mildly Entertaining at UNCW, the show where the Office of Military Affairs keeps you mildly entertained and more or less up to date on what's going on at UNCW. Your hosts are Joanna DeMott, the Military Liaison and Program Coordinator, and Melanie Nelson, the Military Student Services Specialist. Greetings, Joanna. How are you today?
I'm great. We've switched roles a bit. I'm on campus and you're at home.
That is true. That is true. Joanna reports to us from our beautiful conference room with photos of students in the background, whereas I am reporting from the home office today. So as per usual, we don't know what might happen when we're in the home office. We will just play it by ear. Like literally, because you'll hear it because it's a podcast. Get it? I'm so funny. Anyway, Joanna, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest today?
I am so excited to have Dale Robbins, the founder and president of WholeVet, a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing veterans, transitioning service members, National Guard and Reserve members, and their families, my favorite part, with the tools, resources, and support to have a great civilian career and life, and a new member of Ashley Furniture's military recruiting program. How are you today, Dale?
I'm doing great, ladies. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It is already more than mildly entertaining. I'll just go ahead and tell you that.
Well, we got to dial it down then, because we cannot have more than mild entertainment. Dale, I see you now. You are in a wonderful home office place, wonderful WholeVet banner in the background. Our listeners can't hear this, but the situation around WholeVet has changed quite a bit during coronavirus and what you're doing now. Can you just explain a little bit about how things have changed?
Yeah, so our last on-site event, Joanna, which you're aware of, was held at the American Legion in Jacksonville, North Carolina, serving Camp Lejeune, and even pulled in some service members from Fort Bragg. I'm a little biased, more than a little biased. I'm also probably our biggest critic because every event I look at, where did we succeed, where can we improve? But that event was off the charts. We served 140 service members, veterans, and spouses. And whenever I give numbers, I tell our team, we will never pad numbers, not even one. I want 100% verifiable numbers. So we did. We had 116 people that had registered, showed up that day. We had 14 walk-ins. We may have had some more that slipped through the door, but we did. We had 140. And we came out of that event so amped up to head back to Cape Fear Community College in Wilmington in April. And then some weird thing called coronavirus started hitting the news. And I personally don't watch a lot of news, but I realized, oh, wait, you need to see what's going on out here because we could get interrupted. So, yeah, we had on-site events scheduled, actually 3 more scheduled through the rest of 2020. And we were headed towards our first ever event, which would have been the 4th on-site at App State, actually. In the fall, and all of that was put on hold. So what that did, that forced us to take a step back, look at what we were doing and see what we could do virtually, which we've been doing, which is we're adding tools to our toolbox. And as we get into 2021 with the expectation that things are going to open up to whatever degree that means, we can be on site again, we will have found out what's working for us virtually and what's not. In these virtual events, and we're doing employer showcases, etc. We'll add those to our toolbox to augment what we're doing on site at the various facilities.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a little bit about those upcoming events at the end of the interview here. What I'm going to do now is turn you over to Melanie. She's got some really great questions for you.
Okay, so the first question has nothing to do with what you were just talking about. It has everything to do with what you are snacking on these days. We find that it's very important when people are in the home office to take a moment to evaluate your snacking needs and your snacking habits. So what does Dale snack on?
Joanna, have you given her any insight into anything that may, okay, so let's see, while avoiding too much information, first of all, I have been quarantined for more than 10 years as I have worked from home, quote unquote, in the corporate world and now with WholeVet. And one thing I've learned, ladies, and wisdom to share with our listeners is you can't stay behind the same four walls 5, 6, or 7 days a week working on a computer. So that's just a little add-on. What am I snacking on? So I went through a little physical thing over the summer that required me to stop and look at everything that I was eating. So this was an abrupt interruption to the normal patterns in life. So Melanie, what can I share with you? Snacking granola, yogurt, a lot less meat than before, and trying to discipline how much of everything while also the gym was shut down for a period of time. So yeah, there you go. Granola and yogurt. That's what I got for you.
Granola and yogurt sounds delicious to me. I just like to keep a running list of snacks, you know, for my own snacking inspiration. So yogurt is a good one. And I think, you know, your experience, well, whatever happened, but there are lots of people who have had similar things going on that we've interviewed where they're sort of like, yep, this was a time to evaluate and to reconsider and try something different. You know, in the silver linings club, as it were. So thank you for responding with such equanimity to a question that might have made you a little bit sad. Sorry, I did not have any context. I've never seen this man before, people. So I just, you know, I just ask the same question of everybody. That's what I do. But thank you for sharing. You know, yogurt is tasty. I do like yogurt. So moving on back to slightly more serious subjects. As you know, we work at a college. And so we like to ask people, what was your college experience like, and how do you think it was a factor in getting you to where you are now?
Well, so no offense to the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, but I attended the greatest university in the United States, East Carolina University, and graduated.
Never heard of it. I'm just kidding.
I'll throw it out there. I graduated in 1988. You can go ahead and do the math. It's been a wild ride since then. Probably the greatest thing that I took from ECU is exactly why we do WholeVet. It's the friendships. I still have friends from those years, even though we don't have as much contact as before, but I can pick up the phone and call them and check in with their families. And the crazy thing now is I get LinkedIn requests from their children. So those years at ECU, and I loved it so much, and they loved me so much that I put in an extra year there. So I was deployed to Greenville for 5 years. But yeah, that was probably the greatest thing, and are the people, and that's why we do what we do at WholeVet. Now we fast forward to today, and one of our board members for WholeVet is an ECU grad, ROTC grad, Army veteran, and we have been back to ECU together. And so now even those relationships that he had will be beneficial to us with WholeVet as we build out down east. One thing that we intend to do is to work with student veterans at the universities. So, you know, having these past associations and then good friends at UNCW and other schools, it's allowing us to build out with our really solid foundation.
Yeah, so your college experience has a very direct link to the work that you're doing now, partly through your network and partly through understanding how other people network through their alumni associations and how they're still connected to their universities. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to hand you back over to Joanna for some more tidbits about your current work.
Now, Dale, you and I get along because you are so passionate about this population. What is your favorite part of what you do?
Oh, wow. It's always the people, and it's a challenge. Every day we're building, but it always goes back to the people, and it's building relationships. And you've heard me say this at least once, if not 1,000 times, that life is all about connections that become trusted relationships. So every day I get to work with great people, and honestly, I'm honored and humbled, especially by people like you, Joanna, and Bill Kaczynski and Rachel Faros, and keep dropping names of mill spouses and veterans and even active duty that believe in what we're doing. So there are times in a busy schedule that I have to stop and look around and go, okay, hang on, this is supposed to be fun. It's not really work, to be honest with you, because we're building something we believe is revolutionary and foundational, and a piece to a puzzle in North Carolina, and that is beginning to extend outside the walls of North Carolina, even this week, with some great new contacts and I believe are trusted relationships. So it's the building process, and I've come to realize that we'll never be finished with the building process, because we'll always be pruning what we do and zigging and zagging and improving and adding this and adding that. And at times you realize, yep, we don't need to quite do that this way anymore. So I get really amped up with the building process.
Excellent. Now, this is going to be a hard one because you're always so positive, Dale. What are some misconceptions about what WholeVet does, what you do?
Misconceptions. Probably, so it is continuous education of what is this thing, WholeVet. This is going to sound really simplistic and even a stupid comment, but you either have heard of WholeVet or you haven't, right? So we had on our last virtual call, there was a guy that was having audio problems. So he could hear us, but his microphone was jacked up on his computer. So all of the interaction as he was going into breakout rooms, and even with me, I was chatting with him, it was over chat. He couldn't speak. So I'm speaking to him and he is chatting back to me, which was pretty interesting. I finally said, "Where are you and how did you hear about us?" He said, "I'm in South Carolina." And I said, "Okay, how did you hear about us?" He said, "LinkedIn and Eventbrite." So what was cool with that was none of our normal communication distribution that we built out over the years of emails, UNCW and the different community colleges and the transition offices on the basis, he was not connected with any of those. So, I think one of the things that I'm continuously working on is the education to those that have never heard of us of what we're about. And not only why we do what we do, but what do we do? And we have such a big vision that I am continuously educating people on this is where we are, this is where we're headed. And I'm always looking forward 5 years from now, this relationship is going to be strong and we have no idea where it's going to take us 5 years from now. So part of probably the biggest, I wouldn't call it a misconception, but one of the biggest jobs we have is how do we explain clearly what we do in a very crowded space? Because one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to bring any more clutter to those that are transitioning out of the military, their spouses, or the veterans, right? Because there are a lot of really good efforts out there, but we don't want to bring any more clutter and confusion to, all right, what are y'all all about? We've heard about these other 50 organizations, right? So as far as misconceptions, probably there are others that could tell me what are those misconceptions that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, we hear a lot about that sea of goodwill, all the organizations that are coming in and what they're doing. So yeah, I'm glad that you explained that a little bit. WholeVet has some really exciting events coming up. The employer showcases, which have been extremely popular and a great way to learn about a company without going to a whole, event. On the 21st of this month, Lockheed Martin, and then the 21st of next month, Amazon. And then also a virtual military career transition event on the 6th of November. I went to a career transition event a couple of years ago at Cape Fear, and that's how I met you. And I have to say that going to any of these, and especially WholeVets, you get that opportunity to network, which is so important. And these employer showcases are a great way to learn about organizations that you might be interested in, or if you hadn't considered them, checking them out one-on-one.
We, at our on-site events, and I'm just chomping at the bit to get back, we came out of the event in Jacksonville, and this is just how simple this is to anyone listening. When you build trusted relationships, it's almost limitless what you can do. When you've got people that trust each other and organizations that trust each other, at the end of that day in February, I had rolled up my sleeves. My oldest daughter was there. We were the last ones there cleaning up, along with James Simpson, who's on our board and the lead military recruiter for Pike Electric. I'll go ahead and throw that in there, or Pike Corporation. And then the two guys that are the leaders of the American Legion. At the end of the day, I walked over there, and they're two Marines, right, about my age or older. And I said, "What do you think, fellas?" And they just nodded their heads and said, "Yeah, it looked like a great success." And we just all stood there for a few seconds. And one of them said, "You want to do it again?" I said, "I was hoping you would ask, when do you want to do it?" And they said, "You tell us." So we were scheduled to be back there August the 7th. So I'm chomping at the bit to get back down there and to get to these other places. But we, of course, had to step back and look at what do we and how do we go virtual with this stuff, because the mission continues. So we had a big, sometimes you look around and say, "What are you doing?" What? Not to y'all. I look at myself and look around and I go, "Okay, what are you doing? What are you getting yourself into?" So in June, we set up this really aggressive day and a half. Who sits on a video call for a day and a half? Nobody, right? So we set up a really aggressive agenda, and the first half that afternoon were really items that we don't normally cover. So the idea was, let's video this and break it up and get it out on YouTube, and so people can go watch it later. And then the second day was usually the meat of what we do, with a professional development panel, a keynote speaker, and then companies introducing themselves, and then using breakout rooms, much like at an on-site event. So we learned a lot with that day. And one thing that hit me, and I use the word intimacy quite a bit. How can we create more intimate events so that there's more bang for the buck for the people that we serve when they join, and also for the companies, because these companies believe in what we're doing and what we're building. And that's why their people devote their time to this. And these companies, I cannot stress this enough, they want to hire in the military and veteran space. And I posted on LinkedIn recently, we do not have a job shortage in this country. We have a worker shortage. These companies are begging for employees. So we've started employer showcases. That word intimacy was, okay, we've got breakout rooms with 12 or 15 companies, and people are bouncing back and forth and et cetera. And hopefully this is a good time for them. But how can we take that and boil it down into a more intimate setting? And we've recorded those. We haven't gotten them out there yet. We're doing a little video editing. But yeah, we started out with Biogen, who we've got really good friends at Biogen and Research Triangle Park. And then Pike, up next is Lockheed. And then the big animal everywhere is taking over the world is Amazon. We're honored that all of these companies are working with us. And we've got a number of companies that are lining up to do employer showcases next year. Also, we're doing career path explorations. So this is another idea that came from our on-site to the virtual, where we take quote unquote subject matter experts and we set aside an hour for a virtual video call focused on a career path. This is supposed to be company agnostic, which is going to be a little difficult when we do IT networking, because I spent 19 years at Cisco and I got a bunch of guys and ladies lined up to do this thing with IT networking. But it is meant to be completely educational and encouraging and inspiring. You are on an onward opportunity class at Camp Lejeune. Let me throw O2O in there right now. Give them some props. They do great work. You're sitting there, you're 2 years from getting out. You think you want to go into a technical role with Cisco or another company. Well, come to this and listen to these guys and ladies that do the job. They got the certs. They're in the trenches doing the job day in and day out. So we're just beginning to work on that now. And by the way, our career path explorations and the employer showcases are done in partnership with Onward Opportunity. So they're quote unquote co-branded events, if you will. But we are probably going to do 3 of those before Thanksgiving, focused on IT networking, IT sales, and probably the third one is going to be software development and engineering. So that's really a niche focus. But we got a good core group of believers. Most of these guys and ladies are veterans. They believe in what we're doing, and they're willing to give of their time to educate primarily the transitioning service member and spouse, but also veterans, regardless of how long they've been out.
That's really exciting and different than what other people are doing, and a wonderful way for people who are transitioning or are already out to look at maybe changing their career path or doing anything else. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work you do. It's a pleasure to know you and to see your passion in action.
Well, thank you. You know how much I value the relationships. And you're welcome. I've learned to just say you're welcome.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on today, Dale.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for coming by and explaining more about your events and how committed everybody is to making these events happen. I know that people are starting to get kind of zoomed out these days. We've had a lot of activity on Zoom and on other Teams chats and things. But I think this is, again, Silver Linings Club today, apparently. We are, we have a unique opportunity to get some people into these virtual events, whereas I've tried referring certain students or military spouses that I know and being like, WholeVet is great, please try to go to their event. And there's usually some kind of a barrier, there's a childcare access issue, things like that. So now those people have the opportunity to participate fully and to join in for the things that work for them. There is sort of that like, do I really want to go to an all-day in-person event? Because I know that, like, yes, there might be one or two speakers that are interesting. I might get something out of one or two breakouts, but like, you're going to force me to have a coffee break where I have to small talk with people, and it's just not my thing. So it's really nice to have that virtual opportunity, as you said, to get those intimate connections going, where you can really ask the hard questions about what are misconceptions about what people in your role do at this type of job, and what can I really do to boost my resume while I'm still in college. A lot of times too, we have trouble convincing students to go to career exploration and career fairs because they're like, well, I'm not graduating tomorrow. I have time for that. And it's like, no, you need to start doing your research now. So I'm really glad that you're able to come on and talk about your upcoming events. I know we just shared one of them in our weekly update newsletter email to our students this week, so I hope they participate. This has been an episode of Mildly Entertaining at UNCW, and we will see you on the internet. Thank you for listening to Mildly Entertaining. Our intro music comes from the band Blue Turnip and their song, What Do You Want From Me? You can find their EP, Songs from the Root Cellar, on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify. For more information, you can go to blueturnipmusic.com.